Okay, so for this semester in IST 361, I will be working on an iOS music voting application. So for this first sprint, I will be creating an account. Users create an account by adding their email address and password. There will be two text fields that allow the user to sign in and create an account, and this will help identify users for compiling users' results in the future. Since everyone's vote is going to be unique to their own individual account, it makes it easier to be able to have the ability to sign in with an email and password to make the user unique. Uh, in order to do that, I will be using Xcode, the IDE in which I will be developing this app in, and I will be using Google Firebase to store the user email and password along with the user's vote, which will just be a yes or no. And I've also installed CocoaPods, which is basically allows me to access a ton of libraries for different functionalities. So uh, I went into my terminal and I went to the project directory, which is the music app, what I called it, and I installed it. And as you can see, this is what a pod file looks like. So we have Firebase Analytics. Of an app is just like all the activity that a user does within it. How many signups you have, how many accounts were created, um, how much screen time they have on a different UI. And then we have Firebase Auth, which is the ability to create an account with an email and password, or maybe just Gmail or Facebook or Twitter, any way to sign in. And there's database and storage because we need to store the user's data in Firebase. So as you can see, I just installed CocoaPods by going to cocoapods.org. And like I said before, I went to my project directory and I installed it in the project. And whenever you add something new, whether it's adding, like before it used to just be Firebase Analytics, but once I added Swift Keychain Wrapper Auth database, I'd have to save this file and then go back to my terminal and install the CocoaPods again, and it would refresh. Now, if we go to the project, this is the code for creating and signing in. And as you can see right here, we're going to have an at IB outlet variable, email text field, and password text field, and then we're going to have a sign in button. So text field and button, those are two different attributes that are within Xcode, and we can see that by going to main.storyboard. Main.storyboard is the file that controls the UI of the entire iOS application and allows you to drag in buttons, labels. Labels is just static text fields. You can't change it or anything. Button, once you click on something, it'll perform segue, and that basically means it'll transition from one screen to the next. And as you can see here, like we had from the code, there's the username text field and the password text field. And here is our sign in, sign up button. Now, I chose this layout because it's simple and it's all you need in order to create an account. Considering our time that we have for this semester to create this project, I figured just being able to have a username and password text field and sign in, sign up button, it makes it incredibly easy. And then for this screen, right now it's just more of a dummy screen because it's not needed for this sprint, but I just wanted to prove that the button's functionality was working. So those are all the different songs. They'll all be represented by buttons instead of labels because when I want to click on one of these songs, when a user clicks on one, I want it to perform some sort of activity, and that'll be voting yes or no. So voting yes will be clicking on the button, which will communicate with Google Firebase, and that'll be communicating, yes, I want this song to play, and then ignoring it. There's no sort of communication between the database or anything. It just won't pick up on it at all. So if we go back, here's our view controller right here. So let's go to our view controller.swift file. And what this is doing is this function clicked sign in is going to be connected to the sign in sign up button. And we're going to have the email text field and the password text field take the data that is entered in by the user And what it's going to do is it's going to communicate to Google Firebase. And what it's going to say is if the user exists, then the user will just sign in. But if the user doesn't exist within Google Firebase, it's going to create that account, store it in Firebase, and then it's going to go to home screen. So in either case, you're going to go to the home screen. And like I said before with segues, perform segue, this is the functionality. It'll just say perform segue with identifier, go to home screen. Every one of these has their own identifier. This would be go to home screen. And let's just run this application. So the simulator will pop up. Sometimes it takes some time to load. Okay, so now I'll just create just an example account, chris@gmail.com, and then password. I'm just going to do password. And the dots, I was able to add the dots for security by going to main.storyboard and clicking a box that says hide text while typing. So I'm going to click in, sign up, and now it performs segue, and now it is on the screen of all the different songs that are represented as buttons. They don't have any functionality right now because that's not within the sprint. But just to check if it communicated with Google Firebase, let's refresh Firebase. And as you can see, chris@gmail.com was created on September 29th, 2019. And as I mentioned before, the user UID, every user has their own unique ID. So user UID will come into play when I want every user to have their own unique vote for future sprints. And that is all for this current sprint. And please let me know if you have any questions.